Hello, this is Daniel Raymond, the voice behind Ray's Guide. This video is sponsored by Southern New Hampshire University and their online Bachelor of Science in Computer Game Design. More on that later. Lately, the YouTube space has been exploding with content regarding the 45-minute Starfield Direct promotional video. In my prior video, I said that I was disappointed that not many of my questions were answered during the video, but a lot of content creators haven't let that slow them down, but have gone frame by frame to create collections of self-proclaimed discoveries about the game. This is a very uncertain technique because you don't know how old the footage they cherry-picked from the content was, what sort of dev mode they might have been using, and what is yet to happen. I mean, do you honestly think that there isn't going to be a balance passed on the damage and health values in the next few months? I know the game has to be feature complete at this point, but tweaking of statistics will happen up to and even potentially in a Day Zero patch. So your bold declaration about what will be the health value of an orange juice box or a med pack, or how much knockback a particular attack will do, is not at all certain to age well. Others have posted reactions clearly intended to exchange clicks for dignity. It's the perfect game. It will destroy all other games everywhere. There's never been a game like it, and just generally throwing off vibes like this guy.
Is it really you? I can't believe I get to stand near you, breathing the same air. I've got to have every molecule.
Anyway, I've worked to build a reputation in my Star Citizen content of being the most level-headed of creators, and I'm not going to change that for my Starfield content. So if your mindset is that someone must either be a fanboy or hater, then you're going to be disappointed, because this isn't some sort of GVG, that's game versus game, battle royale in which there can only be one survivor at the end. There can be multiple winners, and there has always been multiple winners. At previous golden ages of every game genre, there have been multiple great choices. That's what made them golden ages. And honestly, there are some key space game features that both Star Citizen and Starfield stink at. For example, realistic launch physics. But should I say as a result that only Kerbal Space Program is the perfect space game, and only Kerbal Space Program deserves to survive as a game because it... Or should I say that realistic launch physics can't be important because Starfield doesn't have it? No, the total map of what is possible in a space game is bigger than any single game. Every game maps out a boundary of what it includes, and trying to include too many things runs the risk of not doing them properly. CIG fell into this trap in the early days of its crowdfunding, and now is struggling with the scope of what it has promised, particularly since it mapped out two boundaries, the boundary of Squadron 42 and the boundary of the persistent universe. And you might even consider a third boundary being Arena Commander, even though it is mostly a training and testing platform. But it is there so it can stretch its boundary around something that neither Squadron 42, Star Citizen, or Starfield covers: rapid match play multiplayer. So this is going to be a difficult comparison to do, because some of the boundary of Starfield overlaps with Squadron 42, the unreleased single-player linear storyline game that has been in development roughly as long as Starfield. We've just known about it longer because of crowdfunding. The other parts of Starfield overlap with the Star Citizen Persistent Universe, the massively multiplayer game that has been steadily growing while being played in alpha early access. When both are possible, I will slant towards comparing Starfield to Squadron 42, because the differences in game design between single-player and multiplayer, and even more so massively multiplayer, have broad and deep tendrils. And to keep this level-headed, I will only talk about what has been shown, not what has been theorized, talked about, or suggested. And I'm not going to fall back on the trope that whatever is limited in Starfield, the modders will fix, because I don't know what they actually can fix. For example, what is the most logical explanation for no ground vehicles in Starfield? That Bethesda, with years to work on it, didn't think of it? That they are too clueless to figure out how to do it? Or that once you get to certain elevations or velocity, bad things happen to the graphics engine? Occam's razor would suggest the third. And if so, modders are going to have the same limitation. And I will point out that in some cases, that just because one game has an advantage in an area does not mean that the other game should feel challenged to stretch to meet it, because in some cases, that would undermine their ability to excel at the other things within their boundary, that they do well. But if that's the case, how am I going to be able to declare a winner? You haven't been listening, have you? I'm not going to declare a winner. So I'm going to organize this as places, people, and things. So, starting with places. Category 1, planet visuals. And in this, I'm going to give the advantage slightly to Starfield. It's close, though, and I'm cautious because what we have seen is a promotional video, and that means highly cherry-picked scenes that may have been through video post-processing, because in marketing, the phrase actual game footage can be very liberally interpreted. Next, planetary technology, and I'm going to shock some of you and say advantage Star Citizen. Why? 3 words: rivers, caves, clouds. If Starfield could do caves and clouds, they would have included a glimpse of them in that 45 minutes. And the clouds that are in Starfield are a high, thin layer of clouds, or haze on the ground, of Star Citizen several years ago. Moreover, Star Citizen has seamless procedural generated planets at all altitudes, but with Starfield, we only know that they are seamless from orbit. From the ground, we don't actually know because with only walking in jetpacks, reaching the tile boundary might take many hours. Third, planetary experience. And again, some of you won't like hearing this, but advantage Star Citizen. Some have said that cutscenes orbit to landing isn't that important, and that cutscenes planet to orbit isn't that important. But they forget the one thing that's lost in between: low flying. Low flying is exciting and fun and really adds to the sense of experiencing the real vastness of a planet. Hand-waving it away just won't wash to anyone who has really experienced it in other games, whether Star Citizen or others. Continuing with places, cities. And Starfield's New Atlantis may be the biggest city Bethesda has ever built, but it's something to crow about only if you haven't been paying attention to Star Citizen's major cities: Orison, Lorville, New Babbage, and Arcorp, which covers the whole planet. So no, I'm not impressed with how big New Atlantis is. Advantage Star Citizen for the number and variety of cities, although I'm on record to say that they could do better. Then we have the urban experience, and for pretty much the same low-flying reason as planetary experience, I'm going to say advantage Star Citizen. You can zoom above, around, and even through these cities. You can see them out the window of your shuttle, hyperloop, or train as you move through them. You really experience their immensity rather than just being big-looking backdrops. Starfield has some mention of some sort of subway system, but it sounds more like another cutscene, or they certainly would have shown it in the video. Finishing up in the places category, we have user bases, and absolutely here advantage Starfield. We have been teased a user-facing version of CIG's Rastar building tool, but there are some huge challenges to making that available to the users, particularly in an MMO where having to deal with the potential of hundreds of people collectively creating a base. So now we move from the places category to the people category. Start off character creation, and absolutely advantage Starfield. We have been promised below-the-neck customization in Star Citizen for years, as well as better hair, beards, and tattoos. The facial DNA system of Star Citizen isn't bad, but, well, it comes short. And then we get to character traits and backgrounds, and also advantage Starfield. But in this case, I'm going to suggest that CIG should not try to catch up to them. The reason is that Squadron 42 has a narrow character focus. We're all Navy, and that's the focus of the game, and going huge into depths of stuff that's not going to be relevant to the gameplay in Squadron in any way is just a waste of development effort. For the persistent universe, the diversity would be applicable, but in an MMO, there's a different problem, and that is the meta builds. It doesn't matter in a single-player game if thousands of other players are playing the same meta characters used because they have no visibility to you. But in an MMO, for example, if the half-elf archer becomes the acknowledged meta, then before you know it, you can't throw a stone without hitting a dozen half-elf archers, or rather, them hitting you. Then we come to the next thing that clearly advantaged Starfield, and that is CIG should not even venture there, and that is the skill tree. The reason isn't simply the meta problem, but also from early on, CIG has presented Star Citizen as a game where you are you, that you build your skill by actually becoming better yourself. And that is essential because Star Citizen has mapped out its boundary to include the potential for player versus player combat. But if you overlap a potent skill tree on top of that, it isn't player versus player anymore. It has morphed into character versus character. It essentially is Pokemon. If Neurostrike is the ultimate PvP skill, then you have it and I don't, Your inevitable victory has nothing at all to do with either you being a better player than me, and that isn't going to be very emotionally satisfying to either of us. But while on the subject of your character as a person, there is one other item that is the realism of yourself as a person, how you are injured and recover, and that is Advantage Star Citizen. The system of individual body area injuries with individual effects and individual treatments and separate incapacitated state represents a sense of yourself as a real flesh and blood individual, not conveyed with a single bar of hit points, healed with med packs and food. Now let's move up the scale. Alien creatures, and absolutely here Advantage Starfield. We've seen concept art of a few alien creatures from CIG, but beyond that have seen nothing but a statue and a plushie. I came to Orison to see a space whale, but only got this felt thing. Next, ordinary citizen NPCs, and yes, absolutely Advantage Starfield. Maybe somewhere in the R&D lab at CIG there is some sort of amazing AI stuff in the works, but what we can see right now is pretty embarrassingly bad. NPC interactions, and again, huge advantage to Starfield. The persuasion system is neat, and so is the way in which character traits and backgrounds affects interaction possibilities. We've been promised a similar system where reputation and appearance can do the same thing in Star Citizen, but so far, nothing actually present. Also in this category are mission givers, of which we have seen multiple in the Starfield demonstration. While Star Citizen, the list of mission givers, is notable mostly for how many have used to be in the game, but now no longer are. Then NPC crew, and of course, Advantage Starfield. We've been promised NPC crew in Star Citizen for some time, both as hirelings and in having NPC versions of our multiple game accounts with some sort of guest play option. But nothing has been delivered, and nothing is on the horizon. Then, NPC adversaries, and here I'm going to say Advantage Star Citizen, but with a big asterisk. Star Citizen PvE, as currently delivered, for example in the bunker missions, the adversaries show moments of brilliance if the server isn't overloaded, but otherwise often are just cannon fodder. But the Starfield demo was supposedly showing them at their best. And did you see much tactical intelligence? Using cover, reacting to attacks from above, supporting each other, etc.? I did not. However, we have seen live demonstrations from CIG of greatly improved adversary intelligence, so that technically qualifies as having seen it. At the top of the food chain, there are feature characters, and I'm going to say this as Advantage Star Citizen. There is something about using A-list actors for your feature characters, and that is, damn it, they know how to act. And using them means you're going to bring in quality crew that is excited to work with them and knows how to capture their acting to full advantage. And that brings up something that we know but haven't seen, and I know this is bending the rules, and that's real alien races mocapped by real mocap masters. We have seen a hint that the climax of Starfield might be a first contact scene, but that is only speculation. So having covered places and people, let's move on to things. So the first thing is ships, and the first category is ship customization, and that is obviously Advantage Starfield because of their shipyard modularity system, which reminds me a lot of building ships in Kerbal Space Program. Now, seemingly contradictory, the ship design is Advantage Star Citizen. Yes, Bethesda has made a big deal about their NASA punk aesthetic, but that's all they have. In Star Citizen, MISC, or maybe RSI should be the NASA punk brand, but then you have the Tesla-like elegance of Origin, the bare-bones exposed aesthetic of Drake, the military efficiency of Aegis and Anvil, the smooth lines of Crusader, the delicate folded origami of Xeon ships, the H.R. Geiger animatrophic Banu ships, the construction site aesthetic of Argo, the bird-like lines of the Varan ships, and so on. Yes, Starfield lets you assemble the Lego bricks any way you wish, but it still comes across as Legos. The Star Citizen ships were built to look and be what they are and who made them. This then leads to ship interactability, and I suspect that Advantage Star Citizen, in your ability to, in the game world itself, interact with specific components, swapping items, loading and unloading missiles, changing guns, eventually leading to a real full engineering gameplay, really won't be working with the Lego bricks of Starfield. Which brings up another matter, the career depth in which is Advantage Star Citizen. In Starfield, we saw demonstrated that mining is you shoot the rock with a gun and then you walk by and are instantly automatically carrying all that rock, irrespective of how heavy and bulky that might be. You apparently salvage wrecked ships by flying through the wreckage. Are there actually size and weight constraints to doing so? Doesn't seem so. On the other hand, in Star Citizen, mining, salvaging, etc. are involved professions requiring that you develop skill, not just allocate a skill icon. They are worthy of a sense of accomplishment when you personally have mastered the skills of being a miner and a salvager, including extra parts of the process like refining, tools, and knowing the market. Moving to the smaller end of the things category, weapons and their customization on the crafting bench. And this I give advantage to Starfield. It seems that some very inventive weapons and some very inventive customizations, like explosive rounds and such, are available. And again, this might be one of those things where it is a feature that CIG shouldn't try to duplicate. Squadron is a military setting, so your choice would be constrained to military-issued weapons and not experimental things. And in an MMO, having special power weapons being available to creation has a problem similar but different to the meta problem. You see, in a single-player game, these advanced crafted weapons can be part of a character progression. You need to go to 16 places to get components, and then you have to develop your skill at crafting, and then you can make one as your advancement or reward. But in MMO, your org sends 16 players to each of the locations to bring back 100 of the item, and then the org's crafting guy bangs them out with almost no chance of failure because he's the crafting guy and has done it 100 times each week. And then the org has 100 copies of the supposedly rare and difficult to obtain item and makes them part of their standard kit given out to recruits, which forms a survival leverage for joining the large org, essentially being a self-preservation step, whether you wanted to be a part of a large org or not. That is a sad truth, that not every game mechanic translates from single-player to MMO. Boss drops and quest items inevitably will be farmed and camped and become commodities. And finally, an item that I have had to put at the end because it wraps up many of these other items, and that is the most immersive. And I define immersion as being the combination of detail, verisimilitude, and diegetic action. And I say advantage, Star Citizen. The existence of caves, rivers, and clouds that you can fly through, the ability to experience the cities and planets at various altitudes, the more detailed injury effects, the breadth and detail of the ship designs, the interactability of the ship, the depth of the career gameplay are all part of this conclusion, but also something more. The Starfield interface is constantly throwing up reminders that this is just an arcade game. The level markers and health bars, the leveling up, the allocating new points to arbitrary skill tiles, all are reminders that this is just an arcade game. But weren't these also some of the things I said were advantage Starfield? Yes. Immersion is just one thing. It is not everything. And despite obviously flawed things like the MOBA glass and the inventory system, CIG keeps the game world still there as an anchor that you haven't left. And I said I wasn't going to declare a winner, and I'm not. And whether you agree or disagree with my assessments, I don't expect things to stay this way long. When September 1st rolls around and we get to actually play Starfield on our own, a lot will be revealed that was only implied at Starfield Direct. But just 7 weeks after that, CitizenCon happens, and CIG has just announced that this year they will, for the first time, have it be a 2-day event. That means that they want to show more than could be fit in a single day. And that means they want to show a lot more than they have ever shown before. I don't think that is a coincidence. They don't simply want to steal Starfield's thunder just a few weeks after launch, but they also believe that they can. Either way, it should be clear that computer games is a whole different magnitude of enterprise than when either Chris Roberts or Todd Howard got started. Both Starfield and Squadron 42 have been in development for many years by hundreds of persons. Despite the wishes of fans and the over-optimistic promises of CEO, game programming is a long-term effort creating stable careers with lasting potential. And one route to take to get into it from your current employment is this video's sponsor. the online Bachelor of Science in Game Programming and Development degree from Southern New Hampshire University, a regionally accredited, not-for-profit college, the lowest per-unit cost of any major university. Registration is just about to close June 24th for the start of classes on June 26th, but there are new cohorts of students starting throughout the year. SNHU has a 90-year history of providing career-focused professional degrees, and game programming is just one of over 200 degrees that they offer. For more information and to talk to a real person about all the questions you might have about this or any other degrees that they offer, go to snhu.edu/raiseguide and fill out the form. Classes and work assignments are entirely virtual, so time zones and whatever your current schedule is need not be a problem. And SNHU has been recognized as one of the most innovative colleges in the country. Again, learn more by filling out the form at snhu.edu/raiseguide. Now for an update on our giveaways. First, they have the 10,000 subscriber thank you for the LTI Hull C, the Colossal Cargo Container Carrying Craft, or $100 of Steam Store credit to be given away when the C goes live, and a big annual ship giveaway for either the Galaxy Complete, the Massive Modular Mining Moving Medical Machine, or the Banu Big Box Bargain Bazaar called the Immersion, or again, $100 of Steam Store credit. Just be a member and be entered automatically, or subscribe and comment using the secret word. And the secret word for this video is the kind of headedness I like to give my content. Fly safe, keep it real, and I'll see you in the verse. This is Daniel Raymond for Ray's Guide.